It's very easy for your partner to share their opinion. And if it clashes with yours, we sometimes hear it through a certain lens that is not how our partner even intended it to be heard.
Ariel and I were just at odds with each other. Because I was like, I hear you, my love, but I so think this is the right thing to do. And Ariel was like, I hear you, but I so disagree with you.
Yes.
So now what? Now we're in the heat of disagreement. What do you do when you and your significant other disagree about a business decision? Do you have a plan in place? Do you have a habit up until this point of disagreeing and then that leading to fights and that leading to conflict and then leading to even more problems and that leading to resentment? Or do you have a step-by-step framework that you could follow to instantly transform a disagreement into a decision? If you're watching this and you don't currently have a process that you and your significant other can walk through to go from the heat of a disagreement into making a decision that everybody feels happy about, from our experience, we've learned a few things about navigating disagreements. And after coaching so many entrepreneur couples up until this point, we've come up with a framework that if you follow, it could take you from a disagreement in a business decision to making a decision that everybody feels good about.
That's right. And if you're still getting to know us, my name is Ariel. This is Kyle. And over a decade now, we've been behind the scenes helping different companies make 6- and 7-figure jumps in their revenue. And we've been very blessed to help our clients generate over $77 million online across a variety of different industries. Now, with that said, we've very much also been entrepreneurs for the last 11 years now and have navigated the different ups and downs of both being entrepreneurs in one relationship. And that's why today specifically, we wanted to dive into how to handle disagreements between you and your partner when you're business owners. So whether you're in the same business or you each have separate businesses, you're both making a lot of decisions on a daily basis. And it's important for you to be aligned on those decisions, even if you don't fully agree, but to really just have a way to navigate when you actually disagree and how to move forward and make a clear decision.
And it's important, as Ariel was saying, because at the end of the day, as business owners, we know we need to make a lot of decisions on a day-to-day basis in order to grow our business. Is that correct? Is that correct? Well, what we've learned over the last decade of growing businesses is that the quality of your decisions will lead to the quality of your business. But what happens when you and your significant other are both in the business and you disagree on things like, where do you spend money, for example, or about what actions to prioritize out of all of the millions of things that you can do? What happens when you disagree about what gets put on the schedule and what gets put off the schedule? What happens when you disagree about like who's going to focus what effort towards what department? What happens? Well, for a lot of entrepreneur couples, these disagreements massively slow down your progress, but even more so, it creates resentment in the relationship. And whenever the disagreement happens, this is the goal. It is to find a way to reach an agreement on the direction and approach that you guys are both approaching. So your goal is not to win the argument. The goal is to reach an agreement. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through 5 steps that you can do immediately in order to go from disagreement to decision. Step number 1. Are you ready here? Step number 1 is...
Step number 1 is to diffuse your own defensiveness. Now, admittedly, this is sometimes the trickiest piece, but once you get past this, it's all downhill from there. Downhill in a good way.
Downhill in a good way. This is like the one domino. It's the hardest one.
One domino.
This is the hardest domino to knock down, but once you knock it down, it knocks down all of the other ones. So if you find yourself in the heat of a disagreement, the first thing that we all need to do, and it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it, is to diffuse our own defensiveness. Let me give you an example of what this looks like. Last year, Ariel and I disagreed on where we wanted to take our business next. Now, even what that means is that both Ariel and I are not perfect. Just to burst your bubbles right off the bat, we are not perfect. We disagree on things. And at the end of the day, when you have 2 people who have 2 different perspectives of how things should grow, you're going to have a little friction and tension and disagreement. It's totally normal. But what we don't want that disagreement to do is to turn us against each other and cause us to fight one another. So last year, I had a brilliant idea. And I thought it was brilliant. And I came to Ariel and I said, Ariel, you know what? We should create a mastermind. Our coaching program has done really well. a lot of the clients in our coaching programs are getting amazing results. We should create a mastermind. And, we should charge $50,000 to $100,000 for this mastermind. And it's going to be awesome. I know the stages that we can go promote it on. I know some of the people that can help us promote it. And it would be a huge cash investment. Plus, it would also allow us to work with people more one-on-one. Like it was amazing. And how many of you guys watching are people like me in the relationship when you have like a ton of ideas? Like you have more ideas by lunchtime than could ever really be implemented.
Yeah.
If that's you, I resonate with you because I came to Ariel with this wonderful idea that I was super passionate about, which is to create a mastermind. That Ariel did not see things the same way, did you?
No.
No.
Nope.
No, she did not. Ariel disagreed with me. She was like, Kyle, I hear you, but maybe this is a situation where it's the right idea, but at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, I like your idea, but there's other things we need to do first. We need to hire a team. We need to put some infrastructure in place. We need to make investments in these other things. And Ariel and I were just at odds with each other.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I hear you, my love, but I so think this is the right thing to do. And Ariel was like, I hear you, but I so disagree with you.
Yes.
So now what? Now we're in the heat of disagreement. We're in the heat of like going, man, what do we do? We're at an impasse now.
Yeah.
But here's what we did. The very first thing that we knew to do after years of working together and having understanding of human psychology and relationship psychology, we knew that the very first thing we needed to do in this situation was to diffuse our own defensiveness. Yeah. Because here's what happens. If I take Ariel's disagreement towards an idea I have in business as her attacking me, I'm going to respond in a defensive manner. But if I can divorce my own identity and value from the equation and recognize that Ariel disagreeing with a point is not the same as her disagreeing with my value as a person, all of a sudden, I no longer have to have this knee-jerk reaction to defend myself. If you've ever been in a situation where you have a disagreement with your significant other, but in like them saying that they disagree with you triggers this like almost like anger, like you want to fight and you want to defend your point of view. If that's the case, I just want to encourage you, if you could do this one first step, which is to diffuse your defensiveness, this is going to be something that opens up the gate to come to a resolution without fighting and more conflict ensuing. Is that right? Anything you want to edit?
I was going to say, so what it looks like to diffuse your defensiveness is, I think you said this the other day.
Yeah.
It's almost like being able to view the situation from like a third party perspective. So how did you talk about that?
Yeah, I would basically, has anyone here ever played the game of Sims? Out of curiosity. I'm just curious. Basically, for those of you that don't know, Sims is like a computer game where you are able to create like your own people that you watch over from like an aerial view. See what I did there? Aerial view. And essentially, you are viewing your Sims characters as, like with a completely detached perspective, and you are able to kind of like set up the Sims characters' lives in order to become the best humans they could be. Here's the situation. If you can view yourself and your partner from a Sims aerial view, where you are looking down at yourselves and you are divorcing the emotion from the equation, at that point, that allows you to kind of shift your perspective away from the emotional reactivity and see the situation from a very objective lens. Is that what you wanted me to say?
Yeah, I just think it's helpful because I think when we say diffuse the defensiveness, sometimes it's easier said than done. So kind of having a little bit of a practice, almost like using that anger or that defensiveness sometimes is a little bit of a trigger to kind of zoom out and view the situation from more of a third party perspective.
Yeah.
So
practical steps though. Ready for it? It's easy for us to say, just don't be angry. But like, how do you actually do that? How you actually do this, very practical, is you feel it and you allow it to be felt in your body and you allow yourself to feel it, but you don't react on it. Yeah. There you go. There's the practical answer. I know it's not very technical. It's not very complex.
Yeah.
But how many of you guys know that the simplest things in life are the most profound and the most impactful? If you could feel that initial anger and like just allow yourself to feel it, but don't act on it, don't express it, take time to process it, that diffuses the defensiveness. So that way you could go into the remaining 4 steps to go from a disagreement into a decision. That very first step is to diffuse your defensiveness, which leads us to the second step that is very impactful for a lot of the couples we work with, which is as follows.
To define your partner's perspective. Now, the reason we say define your partner's perspective is because it's very easy for your partner to share their opinion. And if it clashes with yours, we sometimes hear it through a certain lens that is not how our partner even intended it to be heard.
Yeah.
So we put our own bias on it, so to speak. So what's very helpful is when we can actually define our partner's perspective, and what that looks like is actually putting language to it, putting words to it, and repeating it back to them in the way in which we're hearing it, to ensure that we are hearing it in the way that they intend or not, and therefore they can correct. So defining your partner's perspective, like let's say in this example, when Kyle and I were disagreeing on whether we should launch a mastermind at that time or not. In that example, Kyle may say, okay, so what I'm hearing is that you don't think it's the right time because of X, Y, and Z, because of the resources that we'd have to allocate to it and, all these other things. Is that right? And I could say, yes, that's what I'm saying, or no, it's not quite what I'm saying. Like, here's what I'm actually saying. And then we get around to, right? So you can actually define your partner's perspective and make sure that we're actually hearing it the way it was intended versus the way in which we are filtering it through the lens in which we view the world, which is sometimes very skewed.
In this particular situation, we both took the time to define each other's perspectives.
Yes.
And it was important because how many of you guys know when your partner disagrees with you, it's easy to just react immediately and get angry. But if we take a second and we just define our partner's perspective in the way that we're hearing it, here's what you'll find. You'll find that you might be hearing it completely differently than how they meant it.
Yes.
So initially, when I brought up this mastermind idea to Ariel, I did get defensive. And because I was like, I'm sure this is a great idea. And then also on top of that, what I was hearing when she was disagreeing with me was that my idea was not correct. My idea was not right. I was hearing in my perception and my lens that Ariel did not agree with my decision making at that time. And then, of course, I internalized it as not only do you not agree with the decision, you think that like essentially what I'm saying is not valid, is not true.
Or sometimes we even perceive it as you're not hearing what I'm saying and you're thinking that it's dumb.
Or I'm like, hey, because it's easy.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, are you saying like this is just not a good idea? Ariel actually had the opportunity to tell me, no, it's not that I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't think it's the right time. And this was like a huge eye opener because now all of a sudden, because we took the time to make sure we were clear on what the other person was saying, it immediately just kind of like washed away a lot of the tension that was in the room. And now we can approach this from a very objective perspective, which leads us to the third step. Once you've diffused your defensiveness, once you've defined your partner's perspective, the third step to take is as follows.
Determine which partner has more data in this specific scenario. I'll let you talk about this.
All right. If you are in a situation where you have, let's say, all of the entrepreneurial background, all of the entrepreneurial experience, and your partner is coming to the table and has none of that, it is going to be difficult for you guys to kind of like level with each other on what decision needs to be made. That is why it is so important to objectively determine between the two of you, if there is a disagreement, we need to get to a place where we answer the question, what is right, not who is right. As a business owner, as a double-headed business owner, as couplepreneurs are, you need to come to an objective decision. So to determine what is right, not who is right, it's important to consider which one of you, between you and your partner, has more data to bring to the decision that is being made. So, example, sure, I'll give you an example since you asked so wonderfully nicely. In this scenario, I come from a background of helping companies grow from 7 figures and 8 figures and beyond. That is like my entire decade of marketing consulting has been working with businesses who already were established, who had wonderful like infrastructure and capital, et cetera. And we just took what they were doing and just blew it up. Like we were able to help companies scale by tens of millions of dollars. So my background and my data, my perspective was coming from that lens. Ariel's perspective, her data, her experience comes from the lens of organic marketing and coaching businesses from 0 to 6 figures using social media and no paid advertising. Now,
beyond.
Now we both have data. We both have experience that we are bringing to the table collectively. But based on the situation at hand, who has more data objectively to determine the weight in the decision? In this case, you might be surprised to know it was Ariel, because based on where our business was, we were not at the stage yet where we were like trying to just take where we were and just maximize it with another offer.
Yeah.
We were just not at that point yet. And in that moment, Ariel actually had more objectively accurate data based on the situation at hand. So that was huge, because then once we started to recognize, okay, yeah, I might have a good idea, it's just maybe not the right time. Again, we got closer and closer and closer to making a decision.
Yeah.
So for you, when you're considering this third step, just consider like what experience do you have that you're bringing to the table? What data do you have to analyze to make it as objective and non-personal and non-emotional as possible?
That's the key.
Yeah. And between the two of you, which person is bringing the experience that is the most accurately represented to the situation at hand?
Yeah.
You might be watching this and you have way more experience than your partner, but unless that experience translates to the exact situation at hand, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So for example, if I have more marketing experience than Ariel, there are many instances where it does not matter, because her exact experience and the data that she is looking at is more accurate to determine the best decision right then and there.
Yeah. And vice versa.
And vice versa. It depends on the situation.
And sometimes this step will get you the answer that you need.
Yeah.
But sometimes it needs to go a little bit further. If you still find yourself at a stalemate at step number 3, we're going to go to step number 4.
What is step number 4?
Give me my curtain.
Are you ready for the curtain?
Step number 4.
Curtain number 4.
Step number 4 is to discuss with a third party. Discuss with a third party. Now, I would say to discuss with a non-biased third party.
Yes.
So this doesn't mean go to your sister, go to your mom, go to your friend, who, those people that are just going to be like, yeah, you're right. Blah, 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 he doesn't deserve you, whatever it is.
Right.
Make sure you go to an objective third party that can see both perspectives and can give you direction based on sometimes their own experience or just being able to see the situation as a whole. So this is why, this is one of the big benefits of having coaches in your life. We have our own coaches for this reason, is because sometimes when, we bring something to our coaches and we say, hey, is it A or B? They'll tell us that it's C. Right. So sometimes there's an entirely different perspective that we don't even see when we're so stuck in the in the disagreement in this case.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll even call our coaches and our mentors the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Because if Ariel and I disagree on something, even if we respectfully disagree, how many of you guys know it's just nice to have an outside perspective on your life that is not emotionally attached whatsoever to the outcome? That's you. Everybody needs that in your life. This could be a coach. This could be a mentor. This could be a counselor. This could be just a friend that is going to give you honest advice. You need an outside perspective. Now, why do we need an outside perspective? Because as human beings, all of us have psychological blind spots. If you don't believe me, read the book Blind Spots. I read a couple pages, freaked me out so much I didn't continue. I got the message. All of us cannot see every aspect of what we're doing. That's why community is so important.
Yeah.
Like there are parts of our brains that literally we are not aware. Like we do things consciously that we cannot see, but others can. I love the phrase that says you cannot read the label when you're inside the bottle. And that's exactly what happens in situations. Now, if you and your significant other are working together, this is happening like on steroids, because now you both are kind of in the bottle arguing it out together. And sometimes it's just so nice to come to somebody and have a mentor or a coach that you can express both opinions with. And for Ariel and I, that was really helpful, because when we brought our mastermind idea to both coaches, the conclusion that they came is like, hey, guys, we think both of you are right. But if we had to choose in this current moment, Ariel is actually more correct in this.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Just kidding.
Husbands out there, usually your wives are right.
Oh, all right.
Us husbands just need to hear it from like 3 other people. It's like, hey, Ariel, this person said this. I think it's a great idea.
I'm like, what a great idea. I only said that 3 years ago. It's fine.
Yeah, Ariel has all these great ideas that like simmer in the back of my mind for 2 years.
And
then I hear somebody else say it. And then I'm like, wow, it's genius.
So many good ideas that only get heard through the mouths of other people.
Right.
So, it's fine.
But I've learned, and I know that usually Ariel has an ability to come to very accurate, objective decisions. And I learned to trust that.
And vice versa.
Depending on the subject matter.
That's right.
That is why step 4 is so important, which is to discuss this with a third party.
Yeah.
Which leads us to our 5th and final step.
Yeah.
Once we've got to this point, we've diffused the defensiveness. We've defined our partner's perspective. We've determined which partner has more data. And we've discussed this with a third party. that leads us to one step that will allow us to move forward, which is step number 5.
Decide to move forward. Now, the reason this sounds simple, but the reason why we say this is because the word decide is actually very specific. And I'm going to let you define this. But so what does the word decide mean?
Yeah, here, decide is actually different than choose. You can make a choice. You can kind of flippantly choose things here and there. But when someone makes a decision, when you actually look at the etymology of the word decide, the prefix de means of or from, and side means to cut. So when you were making a decision, you were deciding to cut yourself off from the other options. So a lot of people, though, a lot of business owners especially, they will delay making decisions. Now, I've also studied the psychology of this, and turns out that the reason why a lot of people kind of wade in this water of indecision is not because that they're incapable, I should say, of making the right decision. The actual reality is that most people are afraid of making the wrong decision and dealing with the ramifications of the wrong decision afterwards. But you guys want to know something cool? What they found of studying a lot of successful people, and I've seen this myself, just coaching CEOs at different revenue levels, is that the most successful people are those who make decisions quickly and change them slowly. Whereas unsuccessful people will make decisions slowly and change them quickly. It's wild. But here's the thing. In order to achieve success, decisions must be made. As an entrepreneur, your decision volume and frequency and quality just goes up the more successful that you become. And I'm sure you've already seen that. You have so many decisions to make and you can't wallow in indecision.
Yeah.
But here's the reality. If you just make a decision with the data, with the third-party perspective, you have the wise counsel, what's going to happen is you are going to move forward, get more data, be exposed to more perspectives, and have more information to course correct in the future if necessary, or continue moving forward.
Yeah. And the reason we say decide again is because you're actually cutting off the other options in that moment. Because sometimes what couples will do is they will come to an agreement, but they're not really in agreement. They just say that they're in agreement, and then they'll kind of like still dabble in the other options and not fully commit to moving forward in the decision that they're making together as a couple.
Yeah. So once you make a decision, just move.
Yeah.
Just move forward. I had a coach one time that said, what would happen if you committed to this decision like you commit to your marriage?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like that. Talk about a reframe. Because in my marriage, I know I am so committed to Ariel. I will never, like, I just know, like, when the day I asked her to marry me was the day I decided to cut myself off from any other options but her. So I'm like, I'm committed to her. So what would happen in your life, in your business, in your relationship, if you made commitments and you made decisions, not just flippant choices?
Yeah.
What you would discover is that just making the decision, moving forward, and getting more momentum, that relieves anxiety, that relieves stress, and you have now went from disagreeing with your partner to making a decision that moves you forward.
Yeah.
Those are the 5 steps. Now, the reason why we share these 5 steps with you guys is because we've had the opportunity to coach so many entrepreneur couples through these things. And this is normal. So if you and your significant other find yourself disagreeing about finances, disagreeing about where to invest your time, disagreeing about what to prioritize, what to not prioritize, or even just like different approaches to business, marketing, financial management, debt management, intimacy, whatever.
Or who does what and what roles you both play in the business and in the household.
100%. Now you guys have a framework that you can turn to. Step 1, diffuse the defensiveness. Step 2, define your partner's perspective. Step 3, determine which partner has more data. Step 4, discuss with a third party. And step 5, decide to move forward. Because the more decisions you make, the more data you get, the more you can move forward and adapt in the future if needed. Otherwise, it's time to just move forward.
This will go a lot faster with practice. So as you do this process over time, you'll actually start to shrink the time that it takes for you to go from that disagreement to making a decision. And these steps will become much more natural to you, and really just the way in which you handle any sort of disagreement or conflict in your relationship as well as in the business. So it gets easier and faster.
It not only does it get easier, what happens is the more you practice this, the more you also start to recognize your own tendencies.
Yeah.
Which makes the decision even easier.
Yes.
Because again, our core theme here is that the quality of your business is determined by the quality of the decisions that you make. So when you have your significant other with you, helping you make this decision, what can tend to happen is over time, the more you do this process, I started to realize I usually have the right idea, but at the wrong time. I know that that's now a trend. It's a tendency of mine because I see the future so clearly and I want to make it a reality right this second.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of making a plan to actually create the vision in the future in the most logical, objective way, which is something that Ariel is very good at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and now I know my tendency is I tend to have very good timing in terms of when to execute things, but sometimes the execution is a little unclear because sometimes I tend to overcomplicate and overanalyze things.
Yeah.
So I know my tendency. So when we both know kind of the how we veer when we're making these decisions, we can now take those things into account and move through it a lot faster.
Yeah, I tend to oversimplify. Ariel tends to overcomplicate. Yeah. So if we know that that's a tendency, we can then meet in the middle and actually start to leverage each other's strengths to make the most accurate and efficient decisions possible.
That's right.
That's what's possible to all of you guys. In fact, I think that's a good way to end this.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that your partner's perspective is actually a gift?
Yeah.
I wanted to just ask you this because a lot of people treat their partner's difference in perspective as though they just received a Christmas gift, and instead of opening up the box to see what's inside it, they just punt the present across the room and say, you know what? I don't need that. And unfortunately, I know it's a crazy metaphor, but think about that. If someone handed you a Christmas gift and you didn't open it, you just assumed you didn't need it, and you just kicked it across the room, like, that's not very nice. And it's not very helpful, nor is it very smart because you don't know what's in it. You don't know how valuable it is. Yeah. Here's what I can tell you. If you take the time to receive the gift of your partner's perspective, you open it up and you actually see what's inside and you accept it for what it is, which is a differing perspective that can actually help you come to a better conclusion, then all of a sudden what might feel like disagreement turns into a wonderful collaborative gift that it is.